You already know what we're here for, is to celebrate the Turkey Day Classic, and by unveiling a marker which tells in very succinctly the wonderful history of the Turkey Day Classic from 46 to 1966. On those posters over there are the words of the marker. All of you all should have received a sheet of paper that has on it the words of the marker. I hope you have. On the back side of that sheet of paper are the words of the Star-Spangled Banner and Lift Every Voice and Sing. However, without further ado, I'd like to bring Miss Wheatley 1978, Miss Cynthia Whitaker, and I know y'all probably gonna join in and lift every voice and sing, but I suggest that you just listen to this Star-Spangled Banner.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, who brought stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight? O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets requiem, those boys bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicings rise high as the listening sky. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the taught past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun, let us march on till victory is won.
Thank you so much. Did we acknowledge all the commissioners who were present? People saw the chair of the Harris County Historical Commission, Chris Varela. Are you still here? Not here. And Will Howard, are you here? Joanne Green and Loretta Martinez Williams. By the way, I want to mention there's memorabilia on the tables to my right, provided by Robert Brown, about the Prairie View Interscholastic League Coaches Association. So since we're keeping this relatively informal, If you want to go over there and look at it, you're welcome to do so. You've already discovered the balloons, and many of you have been taking pictures. Now we'll get back to our program. And next on the program is a short history of Jack Yates. There is a short history in the program, which some of you have written, but Mr. Loris Marie Johnson, Yates class of '58, will add to that, and I look forward to her doing so.
What a day it is for the Lions and the Wildcats. This is the first time we have sat together in one setting. Thank you, thank you. To our esteemed and distinguished guests, our program coordinators, the alumni of Jack Yates and Phyllis Wheatley High Schools, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am honored to share with you a brief history of the Jack Yates High School. The story began in 1926 when a high school in 3rd Ward, Houston, Texas, was named in honor of the Reverend John Henry Jack Yates, who was a former slave from the Chesapeake Bay area of the state of Virginia. In that same year, 1926, Professor James D. Ryan, a teacher at Colored High School, now known as Booker T. Washington High School, became the first principal of Jack Yates Colored High School. The next year, 1927, Professor Ryan hired Mr. William S. Holland as the school's first football coach and teacher. Professor Ryan remained principal until his demise in June 1940. Mr. Holland then became principal of Yates, and Mr. Andrew Pat Patterson became Yates's football coach. A new building was opened in 1958. However, Mr. Holland remained at the 26th Elgin School as principal of James D. Ryan High School, later middle school, which is currently known as Baylor College of Medicine at Ryan. Thus, Mr. Holland served a tenure of almost 50 years in the same building on Elgin Street. Mr. Holland's children are here, Carlisle and Edith, and I'd like for you to meet them. Would you stand, Carlisle and Edith? Thank you. During the era of segregation, the teaching and leadership of these principals, both Ryan and Holland, brought their students through the struggles of segregation and challenges of integration that have had lasting and memorable effects through the decades. In September of 1958, the second Jack Yates High was erected at 3703 Sampson Street and opened under the principal, Dr. John E. Cardwell Sr., former principal of Phyllis Wheatley High School in 5th Ward, Houston, Texas. Following his tenure before the building's demolition, at least 15 principals had leadership roles between 1 to 8 years from 1958 to 2018. The third and present Jack Yates High School at 3650 Alabama opened in 2018 with Principal Tiffany Guillory at the helm and followed by Principal Stephanie Square, the present principal, a Jack Yates alum. Please note, these are the first females to serve as Yates's principals, and both at the same location. The Jack Yates principals and their staff
have guided many of us who were students to become world-class leaders in professional sports, government, industry, education, politics, entertainment, homemaking, civil rights, criminal justice, business, aviation, NASA, travel, and other areas. Yes, Jack Yates High School's leaders and students have made the history which truly tells of Jack Yates' fame. We stand for service tried and true, sterling worth and honor too. Oh, dear old Jack Yates High, loyal we are to you. As I close, my wholehearted thanks with blessings go to Dr. Elwin Lee and his support team for making this indelible history an occasion for lifetime memory. Again, thank you. To God be the glory. Please allow me to make one other introduction. I have here with us Mr. Jesse Watson. Would you stand? His grandmother was in the first class at Jack Yates, 1926, and she graduated in 1929. His mother was in our class, my class, Thelma's class, and others here, Thurman's class, Verna Faye Watson. She finished in the last class from the original school, and he has his grandmother's graduation certificate. They received certificates at that time. Thank you so much, Jesse.
Thank you for letting me make an insert. My mother, Sally Booker, many now known as Sally Booker Powell, was in that class of 26 at Yates because Wheatley's construction had not been completed. And so she had to go from 5th Ward, using what transportation was like then, to go to Yates. But she went on, Yates, Wiley, and on, and got all those degrees and was a wonderful teacher. I'm from Wheatley class of 62.
I have another caveat. With us today is Mrs. Dorothy Mae Smith, who lived in 5th Ward and rode the bus to Jack Yates every day. Would you stand, Mrs. Smith? She finished in 1947 and is 96 years old. Thank you, thank you. Did I bring the history?
You did. You did. You did.
Thank you so much. When it comes to Yates, I could talk all day. But I'm getting ready to talk about Yates and Wheatley. I just finished talking with Etta Francis, and we were talking about the fact that this is such a glorious and wonderful occasion. Today, we haven't had a victory or a defeat alone. We're all victorious today. And our ancestors are in heaven shining on us with joy, joy, joy. So let's get together and keep the show rolling.
I see a lot of proud Yates alumni out here. I can't mention them all. I think Dr. Melvin Huckabee was here. Did he leave? And I see Phyllis Huntsberry Williams. Phyllis, raise your hand. I don't know how many years you were the head majorette, but I can remember that like it was yesterday. You're 3 years. That's an amazing thing. And I think Deborah Allen and Felicia Allen were served under you, right? Anyway, thought I'd mention that. All work together. That's right. She was the boss, though, and the best. We're going to move on with the program, and I need to say this because since apparently Dr. Huckabee left, one of the things we're going to be giving to everyone here as they live is this medallion. Now, it's a two-sided coin to commemorate the occasion. You have the emblem of Jackie Yates on one side with some nice words that I wrote. And then on the back side, there's the emblem of Phyllis Wheatley with some nice words. There are some words. There is no backside. There is no backside. I just want you to know we had a committee, but now you know why I didn't ask the committee. Well, you can see why.
That's right.
Yeah, and I don't know how long it would have taken to design this. But I just want you to know we have this for you, and it's a nice memento. So be sure to get one as when you leave. And if they run out, I don't think they should. Okay? Okay. Here, let me. You want to hold on to this one, just to make sure? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let me move right along. We're gonna have a brief history of Phyllis Wheatley, brought to you by Carolyn Moore, right? And Carolyn, where are you? Carolyn? No.
It's the Yates people, they won't stop talking.
Well, that's right. I'm glad you won't have that problem.
Okay? Good afternoon again. It gives me great pleasure to be here on this afternoon. I'll tell you this. When Dr. Elwin Lee asked me to do this, I at first declined, right? Because I was born when many of you were graduating from high school, and as I've had multiple conversations with so many of the Wheatleyites, I am just so honored and so proud that I went to Wheatley High School. Yes. What great legacy. I don't know a lot of the history that my dear friend over here, we're best friends now, Miss Johnson, we're connected for life, okay? So Wheatley, to me, has been this sea of royal purple and lily white that we all take pride in everywhere we go. We see where Willow Avenue has the acronym, hashtag Willow Wherever. We are hashtag Wheatley Wherever, okay? So I'll tell you this before I read the story. My husband and I, we're 1980 graduates of Wheatley High School. We're probably the babies of the bunch here today. But we had a visit we went to California for our anniversary. And during our visit, we had a chance to stop and visit Mr. Earl Dotson. What a wonderful time we had. It was like this museum of Wheatley memorabilia, and not just Wheatley, but Yates as well. And coming back to Houston, I said, you know what, we need a field trip because we missed a lot of the fun activities that you all had back in the 50s and the 60s, that we need to go and see what he has there. It was such a wonderful visit. And so I say to you, Wheatleyites, I know that many of you went back and when they did the night, I think it was the 40th anniversary of the Wheatley West Alumni Association. But I tell you one thing, you need to go and see Mr. Earl Dotson and his wife. They have some great memorabilia that we should never forget. I want to acknowledge, first of all, for all those of you, to all of you in attendance today, to our elected officials who are here, to this awesome committee. I want to thank Dr. Lee on the front end for taking this on. And believe me, he talks slow and methodical, but believe me, he makes sure you understand what he wants done. And our own Miss Deborah Blacklock Sloan from Phyllis Wheatley High School. That marker is absolutely beautiful. I don't really like coming over here to Third Ward, but I'm gonna be driving here every week to see it. Take a picture in front of it. Everybody know me, I never met a camera I didn't like. So I'm gonna be posting pictures all the time. I wanna acknowledge also Miss Wheatley, 1966, Miss Moore, who was not here earlier. Thank you for being here on today. And we're gonna let you get, her sister was Miss Yates. Her sister was Miss Yates. What year? 1968. So that little, you cut them, they're going to bleed purple and white, red and gold, whatever. So thank you for being here, Miss Moore. Thank you. And she has some pictures here. Okay. I can only do the Miss Wheatleys. I'm sorry, Miss Johnson. I can't even, I don't even want to say the word Yates, but I don't have a choice here. So I'll come back. We are together, but right now it's all about the rock. You see this purple here? So she said she has some more Miss. So this is some photos that Miss Morris shared with us on today. And you look at the crowd in the stand. We can pass this around for those of you to see the unity that's displayed then and the unity that is displayed on today. So this is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Miss Moore. And earlier we told you that Miss Wheatley in 1949 was here. She's 91 years of age. Beautiful. Miss Ryan, you can just, if you can stand, you can. If not, there she is. Our Miss Wheatley. 75 years ago, she was crowned the queen of Phyllis Wheatley High School. So thank you. And then, as we stated earlier, Miss Wheatley, 1965, Miss Charlene Arzine. Thank you, Miss Charlene. So I'm going to give credit where credit is due. The history that I'm reading, I was talking to Dr. Etta Francis Walker, as we shared with you earlier. She is the daughter of Mr. Frank Walker, Wheatley football coach. And I was telling her, I said, well, I'm drafting some history of Wheatley, and I wasn't born back then, and I'm just trying to get it together. She said, I've already written it. So I want to give her credit for allowing me to read this history of Phyllis Wheatley High School. So thank you, Dr. Etta Francis Walker. That is truly Wheatley's historian. So why brief but meaningful? Phyllis Wheatley High School opens its door in 1927 as a secondary school, grades 7 to 12, in the Houston Independent School District, as we know, HISD, for the education of Black American students residing in the northeast quadrant of Houston. Classes began in what had been an all-white McGowan Elementary School located at 3415 Lyons Avenue. Almost immediately, Wheatley became one of the largest Black American high schools in the U.S. with 2,600 students and 60 teachers. Through the years of its growth, it transformed into what is thought of today as high school, grades 9 to 12, with the remaining grades 7 and 8 ultimately merged with the 6th grade into what eventually became E.O. Smith Middle School. The Wheatley campuses after 1927 progressed as follows. First, at 1700 Greg Street in 1929, on the same campus and properly originally occupied by the old McGowan Elementary School. Then to 4900 Market Street in 1950, with the 1700 Greg Street campus becoming the first E.O. Smith School. And finally, to 4801 Providence Street, its present location, in 2006 on the same property occupied by the 4900 Market Street campus. The current 2006 campus has the unique distinction of having a Wheatley graduate, class of 1956, Mr. Willie C. Jordan as its architect. Mr. Jordan is here. Would you please stand so we can recognize you, Mr. Jordan? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Although in 1954, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned separate but equal schools for blacks and white, it was not until 1956 that HISD attempted to comply as a result of a suit filed by the Houston chapter of the NAACP, in which one of its two plaintiffs, Beneva Williams Naimu, became a 1960 graduate of Phyllis Wheatley High School. The suit started the integration process here in Houston, Texas. However, it took the staging of boycotts, protests, and marches in the 1960s, in which Wheatley student activists took part and even helped to lead to force the eventual reality of the integration of Houston schools. We are proud of these accomplishments, and this are just a few. In fact, some of the best known politicians, past and present, to serve at all levels of government, local, state, and national, have been Wheatley graduates. Our own Mickey Leland, Barbara Jordan, and Harold Dutton, to name a few. As society has changed, so has Phyllis Wheatley High School. Although still considered a minority inner city high school, its population and demographics have changed as the population of communities has changed as well. Like the historic Fifth Ward and Denver Harbor communities, they also have changed. The current student population is more than a third is Hispanic at Phyllis Wheatley High School that have settled in our supporting communities. Thank you so much.
Outside boys.
I'm trying to get it in here. Okay, back on, thank you. The updated student population is now being challenged by student performance issues, leadership issues, new faculty, and of course, we all know what's going on with HISD right now. However, the legacy shall never leave. Our beacon light will forever shine. As we state, our alma mater shines today, a beacon light to guide the way of those whose paths will lead someday to the place of their ideas. So I want to thank you for this opportunity. Wheatleyites, go Wheatley! Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Wheatley alumni have put the S on spirit. I just want to point out a couple of people that, as Miss Aljanita Scott David has been, who I think you're with CCPPI right now. Yes, but she's been with Houston Southeast and so many different things over the years. I wanted to acknowledge her, and I also wanted to acknowledge A. Martin Wycliffe. There he is. He's a humble guy. I think Marty was among the first black attorneys to become a partner in a major downtown firm, but more importantly, he left that and set up an office down there on, I think it was on Louisiana, wasn't it? Way up high. He did it big time. He's one of the best employment and labor attorneys in the whole country, and everybody ought to be proud of Marty. Yes. All righty. Dr. Thurman Robbins, it's your time again to speak. I want to give a plug for his book. All right. I don't know if he would do it, but I did. This is a great book. You can get it on Amazon. Or you can probably buy it from me from him. And if I had gotten tickets, I would have raffled it off. But anyway, I want to plug that book, and he and I both appreciate this book as well, because both of the books tell the history of black high school, and there's a long section in this book. Michael Hurd's book, that's where I said is ill today. There's a long section on the Yates-Wheatley rivalry. And so I want to plug those as I bring him forward. Got it? Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll take a few minutes, a brief few minutes. I want to introduce my sister and her husband. Thelma Gould is my twin sister, graduated with me in 1958. I saw my brother, Reverend Robert Robbins. He's a 57 graduate of Jack Yates High School. And of course, I'm a marketing agent, but also I want to introduce my wife, Doris Robbins. And as I said a little bit earlier, I see a lot of folk that I remember and are friends of mine throughout the years. I'm going to be brief. I'm going to be briefer than I was this morning. But I was told, or asked somewhat, to talk a little bit about my book. And I'm going to be very brief in talking about that book, Requiem for a Classic. Well, what the devil does requiem mean anyway? It means the loss of someone that you love. So we lost the third Turkey Day Classic. It all came about as a result of integration. We all know that. That was the final straw. He says, well, how did the integration, what did that have to do with anything? Well, in terms of athletics, in terms of football, teams were playing, and at the end of the year, they're in a playoff system. So, with so many schools, it was in the UIL, and the PVIL schools joined them, the playoffs began before Thanksgiving. So all of the district games that had to be done prior to Thanksgiving. So that killed the Yates-Wheatley Turkey Day Classic. Now Yates and Wheatley played many games beginning in 1927. But the first game on Thanksgiving was between Wheatley and Washington, Booker T. Washington High School. And as a result of that, the three high schools rotated the Thanksgiving Day game. Either it was Yates and Wheatley, Yates in Washington, or Wheatley in Washington. But in 1945, Booker T. Washington played its last game on Thanksgiving against Jack Yates. Yates and Wheatley had it to themselves from 1946 to 1966. It was a 20-year span. And somebody remarked this morning, and you look in that program booklet, says Yates kind of dominated that 20 years. After 46. We said we talking about the last 20 years now. Yates dominated that period. Of those 20 years, I think Yates won 13 games. The schools tied twice, 1948 and 1955, 0-0 tie. And then Wheatley won 5 games in that 20-year period. It is what it is. That's all I can say. I'm not making excuses. Let me go on with my presentation. I could talk about the history, but I think both ladies did a marvelous job talking about the history of both schools and how they got started and so forth and so on. I could talk about the men who led, the principals of Phyllis Wheatley, Mr. E.O. Smith, Dr. Caldwell, and Mr. William Moore were the principals during that era. Jack Yates, we had James Ryan, William Holland, Dr. Caldwell, and Mr. James Alexander. Those were the principals during that era. I could talk about those guys. It's in my book, all of that. I'll give a little bio on each one of them, okay? They led. And then you have outstanding coaches. Talk about them in the book too. I could talk about the parades that were held. I could talk about the breakfast celebrations that they had. So fantastic. I could talk about the epic battles that the two teams performed on that field out there. But I'm not going to talk about any of that. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to tell just one little story, okay? And this little story kind of involves around Miss Yates of 1958. Miss Yates of 1958. This story is a story that, when you talk about that Turkey Day game, What happened at halftime? Oh my goodness. Well, kind of being brief, somewhat brief. You know, the school children, the students voted on who was going to be the queen and her court each year. And of course, that year, Carolyn Wilkins won the title of Miss Yates. Okay. We had a teacher, marvelous math teacher, named Miss Bertie Anderson, who was charged with the committee of putting on a halftime show for that 58 game. And so she had this committee, and they went to Dr. Caldwell and said, Dr. Caldwell, we want to do something that has never been done. Says, we want to bring Miss Yates out in a helicopter. Dr. Caldwell said, wow, that is a novel idea, but that is too expensive. Now, Dr. Caldwell, being the man of who he was, he said, you know, there was a lot of turmoil, him going from Wheatley to Yates. The Wheatley people were not pleased with it. The Yates people were, well, what can I say? So Dr. Caldwell said, I need to make some friends here and some allies. So, okay, let's do that. 1 week prior to the game itself, Dr. Caldwell called Carolyn into, not Dr. Caldwell, Miss Bernadette Anderson called Carolyn into her office and said, listen, little girl, we're going to do something that has never been done before. And we're going to bring you and your court on that field in a helicopter. And you can't tell a soul. You can't tell your parents, none of your friends, nobody. Swore her to secrecy. The day of the game, they met at the school, the girls met at the school. One of the committee members herded them in his car, took them out of town to the helicopter port, put them in the helicopter. The guy came on back to the stadium. Of course, by that time, the stadium was packed. And of course, if you know, I could talk about the attendance, because every year it was more and more and more. One year, I think 1961, they had over 41,000 people in that stadium. Now, I said earlier today that when that stadium was built, I think it was $650,000. It only seated 22,000 people. Can you imagine? Well, let me go on. But the guy came back, took his seat, saw Miss Anderson, and she said, how did it go? He said, it went fine. It's going to be okay. They hugged. They sat down. The game began. At halftime, Wheatley, with its fabulous demonstration and festive atmosphere, presented their queen. Oh, those shining automobiles and the floats and everything. Oh, it was just a marvelous, marvelous, marvelous celebration. Yeah. Well, when Wheatley started to depart the field in their entourage, and they got the cars and they moved off to the side, everybody was saying, where is Miss Yates? It's time for her to get on this field. Where are those people? And all of a sudden, they saw this little black thing in the sky, and it was coming closer and closer, coming closer and closer to the stadium. And people started pointing and looking up. What is that? Oh, it's a helicopter. Not only did it circle, but it started to hoover over the field and came right down on the 50-yard line. And who stepped out? Miss Yates and her court. That story is a glorious story. When we talk about all the epic battles that took place on that field, that particular moment is talked about more than anything else. That's in my book. I got everything all of that is in there, all that's in that book. Those people from Wheatley, the Wheatley folk, their mouths flew open. They shook their heads. Oh my goodness. And the Yates people, they yelled so loud, they shook the balls of the stadium. It was unbelievable. So that's just a little story. That's just one little story that's in that book. Let me do one other thing before I go. I have a copy of the book that I'd like to present to the person from Wheatley. The oldest person in here that's from Wheatley will get a copy of this book.
That's our Miss Wheatley over there. It's Minnie Roy.
Miss Roy? Okay, we'll give this to Miss Roy. Minnie Ryan Roy. Yeah. And Miss Roy was a teacher at Yates when I was there. She was a teacher at Yates.
She taught it. She had to bring that spirit. We the spirit over there. She had to. She had to. She had to. All right.
And we got one more. That was a Wheatley person. We got to give people from Yates a book too. The 96-year-old lady, Miss Dorothy Mae Smith, would you come forward to give you a copy? Well, Dr. Lee told you, the book is available on Amazon. So if you need a copy, Amazon, Author House, Barnes & Noble, it's available.
And you can get the Thursday Night Lights at Amazon as well. Those are not competing books. Those are complementary books, really. They both are very rich. As I'm standing here, I remember somebody mentioned the politicians from Wheatley. I thought I should mention the great Judson Robinson Jr., who is known for being from Pleasantville, but he actually graduated from Jackie Yates. And I think he was the first black city council member, I think it was. And the great, Andrew Jefferson, I think he's mentioned in the program, printed, his first black state district judge. And the great former state rep Garnett Coleman, who's done so much for so many in the health area and in Third Ward in particular, but in the health area, he's just amazing. And so I thought I'd mention him. He graduated from Yates. I'm going to move on with the program now, and now I'd like to, I think I told you that Michael Hurd wouldn't be here. So Robert Brown is here. He is the board chair of the PVIL Coaches Association, and I want him to come forward and talk a little bit about the Coaches Association.
It's hard to follow that act. Let's give him a big hand again, all right? I would like to thank Dr. Lee for inviting me over. Excuse me. Let me say this. In '58, I came to Houston on a scholarship at Texas Southern University. But it was nothing like going to see Turkey Day game. But as I looked around and see everybody. Even though the competition was fierce, everybody still loved everybody. I would like to acknowledge, is Miss Etta Francis here? What? Thank you. Is Mrs. D here? Dolores Johnson? Thank you. Is Eddie Henry here? Thank you. Is, I can't think of his name right now. Mantan. Is Mantan here? Thank you. He loves that. And let me tell you, he was the baddest joker in the world. But he turned out to be quite a guy and quite a preacher. And can sing. My main purpose here is to talk about the PVIL and the PVILCA. When we were coming up, we probably didn't know what the PVIL was. We played hard, football, basketball, track, even marbles if they had the marble game. Okay then? But it was called PVIL, Prairie View Interscholastic League. It mirrored the whites, which was the UIL. All of this was during segregation. And you can understand that all of the southern states had their blacks and their whites, academic and athletics. And PVIL happened to be Prairie View, being one of the oldest black schools, being Prairie View to take the bulk of all of the academic and sports for the blacks. Coach Nix knew what he had at that time. He had a selection from all over the state of Texas. And this is one of the reasons that Prairie View at one time was the big dog. Okay then? But to get back to what we want to talk about, and not deviating from it, this is beautiful. Yeah. This is beautiful. But if we don't follow up, it won't mean a hell of beans. We enjoying ourselves. Our schools are getting taken away from us now. It has to be something that we can do. Okay then? I always told my kids when I was teaching that life is just like a boat without a rudder. You just going back and forth, up and down. You don't know what direction you're going in. Then all of a sudden you find your niche. After 40 years, I found my niche. And my niche was saving memorabilia or artifacts from the PVIL. We have what we have now. We have over 600 pieces that we have accumulated over 15 years that are part of the PVIL. And you say, well, how did CA get in there? I was a young guy then, but I knew I had to sit in the back. If it was on the bus, I was still sitting in the back. But there were some great coaches. Pat Patterson, okay, Johnny Peoples, Jab Jones. All of these guys stuck together and kind of went to the executive director of the Texas High School Coaches Association and said, hey, we need a vote. When I got in 64, we couldn't vote. All we could do was sit up in the stands. But guess where we sit up in the stands? In the back of the white folks. Okay. And that to me, I was glad to be there. I couldn't open my mouth and say anything, but that to me hurt. if you could understand that those 4 or 5 guys got together and talked with the executive director of the Texas High School Coaches Association and made it where we get 1 or 2 of the black coaches in their organization and made it where we could vote. And they did an extremely good job. But they weren't satisfied. They said, hey, if they won't recognize us, we can recognize ourselves. In 1980, they got together, and the first banquet was held here in Houston. And are there any relatives of Pat Patterson here today? He had to leave? Okay. Well, let me tell you, he did an extremely good job. Along with the principal of Yates at that time, I think it was Mr. Holland, right? Okay, then. They went to Prairie View and talked with Dr. Evans. And Dr. Evans took the ball right then and ran with it. They made it, Coach Patterson and Dr. Holland made it possible, whereas there was a playoff. Okay, then. And Thurman mentioned that a few moments ago. They made it, actually, they started in 1939, making the rules and regulations. It started in 1920 football season, but in 1939, they figured out that it wasn't any rules and regulations. So what they did, they pulled it together in 1939 and got the rules and regulations, took them to Prairie View, and Dr. Evans did all the work behind it, and couldn't put it in because the football season had started in 39. So in 1940, it started, and that's when the first championship started, and I think Ian Terrell won that one. But it's so much history that we blacks have lost. We have lost. It's one thing to have your history here, and it's another thing to have it here.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Do you follow me?
Yes.
I have not planned to talk long, but hey, Thurman told me to tell you about the museum. Okay, then. All right. We have had tremendous publicity, especially with the whites in that museum. Okay, then. We set up a museum in Dallas, Black Sports Museum, did an extremely good job. On the way home from Dallas, a young lady called me and she said, Coach Brown, I saw you on television. I said, you did, but I'm on my way home now. And hey, she said, hey, y'all did an extremely good job. There's one that was set up in Galveston at the Bryan Museum. And the director and the owner of the museum got up and he said that, you know, we thought we had a good football team until we played those black boys. At halftime, the game was over. They canceled the game at halftime. I think he said it's 45-0. But guess who they were playing? They were playing Austin Anderson, and they won 4 state championships. And the only black school in Austin. And people don't realize that even though Houston was big, they had Yates, Wheatley, Booker T. They had graduations of 150 4 times a year. 150 kids to graduate 4 times a year. No more, no less than 100. Okay then? But hey, I have enjoyed this. If you can have anything that you would like to donate to our museum, we would definitely love to have it. And thanks a lot. Thank you.
So much. Thank you. Some of our distinguished guests, invitees, may have to leave, and I'm gonna call Deborah Blacklock Sloan to bring them up or talk about them.
So I want to bring up State Rep Jolanda Jones so she can present her congratulatory document.
I have been invited to a lot of things today, and I was a little late to the historical marker unveiling because, believe it or not, I got to actually present a certificate of appreciation to Beyonce. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to be a little late. But I'm here, and I wouldn't rather be anywhere else. So let me clear this up. Oh, well, let me say this. I'm State Representative Jolanda Jones. We are in House District 147. That's where you are. So I represent the University of Houston. I also represent Texas Southern and some more institutions of higher learning, but that's not the point because U of H hosted you. And so I want to thank U of H. The reason why U of H hosting is so important, obviously, if you're old enough, and I know I'm older than I look, you know Jefferson Fieldhouse used to be right here. I know I learned how to drive in the parking lot. I don't know about y'all. But, and if what I want for you to know is I have an affinity for both Yates and Wheatley. My grandmother graduated from Wheatley in 1933. She was from the north side. And so did her sisters. And 2 of them ended up moving on to California. Phyllis Wheatley graduated from UCLA. And I don't know if y'all know this, but Maxine Waters' husband graduated from Wheatley. Why are we talking about it? But by the time my grandmother married my grandfather, he brought her to 3rd Ward. So, man, almost all my people graduated from Yates. Went to Dodson, Ryan, and Yates. My father being one. And so it's personal to me. It's personal to me when I just heard about the emasculation of our black high schools and our black sports. But I love history, so I've never heard of the PVIL, and now I'm going to do as much research as I can on that. And I'm also going to buy copies of both of these books. Because in an age where they're trying to stop us from learning our greatness, and they call it some word they just made up within the last 5 years that I refuse to repeat. I ain't talking about that. I'm being unapologetically black, right? Unapologetically from public high schools, Yates and Wheatley and other schools, but Yates, everybody knew about the rivalry between Yates and Wheatley. And as I looked, as the paraphernalia on the tables, I saw more people in the stands for Yates and Wheatley games than I see at U of H games or TSU games, right? That's history. And we've got to do what we can do to preserve and maintain and spread the truth, the gospel about Yates and Wheatley and other schools that educated us when other people would not. And so when you were coming here, you passed by the house I grew up in, a yellow and green house on Scott. I don't know why they picked that color, but hey, you know, I was just a kid. But I say that to say this. I'm so incredibly thankful to you, Dr. Lee, for having the foresight to highlight greatness. These schools are great. And it don't matter that Yates won 13 times in them 20 years. I pay attention. Nor that that homecoming queen came in on a helicopter. At the end of the day, it's about competition. Because we were able to compete for the best jobs. We were able to compete for the best positions. When you talk about the great leadership, Barbara Jordan has a building, the only black-owned real estate in the Texas government's portfolio. She in the airport at Austin Bergstrom. Mickey Leland, we know what he did. They thought he was crazy. Why you feeding people around the world? Because when anybody is starving, we all starving. And that's what they taught us at Yates and Worthing. Look at entertainment, because we've been disenfranchised there. We got Felicia Rashad and Debbie Allen. Look at Roland Martin. The white folks are trying to tell him what to do. He was like, nope, I ain't doing that. And he started his own. And they said he gonna fail, and he's not. And that is what we need to teach. We need to teach the kids from Wheatley. We need to teach the kids from Yates. We need to teach the kids at HISD about our greatness. And I know people, this is not a popular opinion, but integration destroyed our progress. But that's a whole nother story for another day. So, I have here, oh, and I also want to say my Aunt Virginia LeBlanc was the first May Queen at Jack Yates High School in 1929, when Yates was where Ryan is. I refuse to call it that other name. It's Ryan. It's Ryan. Because they believe in stealing our stuff and rebranding it while I'm up here. But I look for the glory days that we had. I'm sorry that I'm emotional. Because we are great. And when these schools were how they were, and we loved on each other, and we supported each other, and we said, well, if the white folks can have UIL, then we can have PVIL. We're going to let these babies compete. We're going to teach them how to be successful. And that's what this is for me. I've enjoyed this. I've looked at all the pictures. I love history. I love history. And so I don't really know who's going to accept. I can't even breathe. My allergies are acting up, maybe because I'm crying. But I want to thank the University of Houston. So Dr. Lee, can you come up here? Because this is a part of the Turkey Day Classic Historical Marker. And then I'd like a representative from Yates. I'm not going to pick no favorites, so whoever want to come on, Carl. Because I know you're going to come. You're going to knock me over.
He was halfway here.
Yeah, and then he was going to get up here anyway. And I want a representative from Phyllis Wheatley High School, which, by the way, before my grandmother died, she was a golden nugget. If you went to Wheatley, you know what a golden nugget is. And so I want to read this. Come on, Carl, because, yeah, you...
Dr. Lisa, I'm short.
So, well, you are. In stature, but you're great in other things. So this certificate is presented to the University of Houston, to Phyllis Wheatley, and to Yates. And I want to read this for the Turkey Day Classic Historical Marker. On behalf of the constituents of the state of Texas, House District 147, we commend your unwavering dedication to preserving the social, cultural, and historical significance of the Turkey Day Classic, the annual Super Bowl.
Yes.
I'm going to say that again.
Yes.
The annual Super Bowl
Yes.
for historic Houston Public High Schools, Jack Yates and Phyllis Wheatley. The prototypical South Side versus North Side battle. Although football was the main attraction, automobiles, fashion, and floats were also judged. The winners won annual bragging rights, and they will brag for 30 years after something. This historic, 60 years. This historical marker memorializes the best of Black Houston history.
Woo, yes. Good job. Good job. Good job. Thank you, State Rep. Thank you.
This is weekly.
Okay, fantastic. Is anybody taking a picture?
Can we just stand in front of this just
Okay.
'cause, yeah, here, Carl, you can have that.
Okay, next we're gonna have Councilwoman Carolyn Shabazz. Her brother's gonna come up, who is a Yates alumni.
Giving honor to God first for an occasion like this. When my sister, I'm substituting for my sister, Carolyn Evans Shabazz, Dr. Carolyn Evans Shabazz. She is the council person from District D. She calls it the District of Destination. Let me be brief also. 2 days ago, I didn't know, I called my friend Rome Nixon about a week ago and said, hey man, how you doing? He says, man, I'm going to this big Yates and Wheatley thing next week. Do you want to go? So he put me on the Carl Davis here, and I RSVP'd immediately. 2 days ago, my sister says, oh, by the way, you're going to be giving a proclamation for this event. And I nerved up. This is too big for me. I mean, do you realize what this is about? See, I have a unique perspective. My perspective is, while I'm representing my sister, I'm also representing my parents. My dad, first job in HISD was at E.O. Smith. My mother's first job in HISD was at Bruce Elementary School, of which I attended for 7.5 years. Don't ask me about the other half year. Teaching was pretty tough back then. All right? So my sister doesn't have that experience. She did all of her schooling in 3rd Ward. I understood the passion of going to school, especially on Turkey Day. I'm not going to read all the whereas and therefore and that. I'm not going to do that. She doesn't understand. On Turkey Day, every year for me, when I was an adolescent, growing up, in 5th Ward, I would go to Bruce and not even care about the Turkey Day game because I was strictly 5th Ward. I would see the passion of the people in the area. But on Monday, when around the last parts of 1960, my dad got a job at Yates in 1957, right? So now it's changed. That Monday after Thanksgiving Day, Yates better not have won because I was going to have to do some battling at school. Somehow, these kids knew that my father coached at Yates. I want to thank Coach Brown for mentioning my grandfather. He was real big in the PVUIL. I'm the third, Edward B. Evans III. And I'm extremely proud of the contributions that he's made in this city around athletics. Okay? Last but not least, I don't want to talk more about Thurman's pre-game stuff. Look, the pep rallies, the morning breakfasts, the preparation for that week. This is the biggest event of my entire life from in adolescent years that it's hard to kind of describe when you talk about the largest high school competition, non-collegiate sport game in the history of the United States. This is what we, thank you so much. The pep rallies, the parades, the morning breakfast, the actual game. If you notice, all of these games in Thurman's book were extremely close. I don't care how many games you won during the year. On Thanksgiving Day, you're going to watch a football game. Is Rome Nixon still in here? Rome had the lead. We witnessed some. My dad coached some of the guys at E.O. Smith, like Jerome Bell, Robert Shaw, Leo Daniel Johnson. My dad also had to be a part of being around some guys like Eddie Hughes, Rome Nixon, Ben Stevenson. These are great, great athletes. So I'm going to wrap this up by saying the passion that I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to speak about this game. So, therefore, with great pride, believe me, and honor, we recognize and celebrate the unveiling of Turkey Day Classic Historical Marker and Luncheon, a symbol of history, unity, and community spirit, in honor of our Mayor, Sylvester Turner, and my sister, Carolyn Evans Shabazz. Thank you very much.
We'll have one more. Harold, Mary Fontenot, you still here? Okay, we'll have one more.
It is indeed an honor to be here amongst greatness. You see, Wheatley and Yates produced greatness. So this is truly a pleasure. I kind of bleed in both arms. Of one side is Wheatley because my mother and my siblings went to Wheatley High School, and in the other arm, I had a lot of relatives who went to Yates High School, including cousin Sylvia over there. So blessed. I am here for my boss, who also is a Wheatley graduate, State Representative Harold Dutton. And thank you. I'll be very, very brief. And I'll only say a small portion of this, very small. Whereas the University of Houston is hosting a ceremony on September 26, 2023, to commemorate the unveiling of an official Texas historical marker paying a tribute to the legendary Turkey Day Classic football game, and whereas the Turkey Day Classic was born out of the resolve of Houston's black citizens to build strong communities and traditions while grappling with the discrimination of the Jim Crow era. And the 1920s black schools in the state formed the Texas Interscholastic League for colored schools to oversee athletic events. And the Houston's high school football team developed the custom of playing one another on major holidays during the season. For the first Turkey Day Thanksgiving game featured Phyllis Wheatley and Booker T. Washington High Schools in 1927. With the burgeoning rivalry between Wheatley High School and Jack Yates High, led Houston ISD to establish the two schools as the game's permanent competitors beginning in 1946. Audiences over 20,000 people regularly turned out to the event during its heyday in the 1950s and 60s, with the crowd peaking at a staggering 40,000 fans in 1961. Whereas although, and actually I know you guys have been here for a while, so I'll say this, that the dedication of an official Texas historical marker for the Turkey Day Classic be commemorated, that all those who worked to secure approval for the marker be commended for their efforts, from State Representative Harold V. Dutton Jr., a proud Wheatleyite. And I have one of these for actually the University of Houston High School, Jack Yates High School, and Wheatley High School. So thank y'all.
So, Dr. Lee, I'm not going to get you in trouble, but let me acknowledge 3 more documents. One from the Harris County Historical Commission, one from the Mayor of Houston, and one from Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee.
We don't have a lot of time for a panel discussion. One thing that has been missing that we might spend a few minutes doing, Carl aptly noted we haven't heard from any football players, I believe. So if you can orchestrate that for 10 minutes, let's do that. Let me just say, Brother Dixon, right? Yes. You're gonna join me tomorrow, right? Tomorrow at 6 o'clock, and Ms. Roy. Oh, by the way, the game is at 6. I'll be calling you about that. They're gonna join me, and we're gonna take the field at halftime, and they're gonna put something on the screen and talk about the unveiling of the Turkey Day. So anyway, Carl is gonna do some magic and let us hear from a couple of athletes.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. It is indeed an honor for us to be here to celebrate these two great institutions. Today, we have the awesome honor to hear from those who played on that field during those historical years. I would like to call Reverend Donald Dixon, played for Jack Yates High School, to the podium. Mr. Fred Lewis, please join me at the podium. And Coach Johnny Means, please join me here at the podium.
Okay, we're gonna just change the order of business right quick. We won't have 3 on the panel. We're just gonna have 1, which will be Coach Reverend Dixon, and then Mr. Eddie Henry from Whitley High School. Would you come to the podium? We're gonna have 2 only, and then we will, yeah. So, yeah, he's coming.
Eddie Henry, please join us up here, please. Thank you, gentlemen, for staying with us today, and then also for the opportunity for this great audience to hear of your experience as a football player during those glorious days. Y'all ready? We want to hear from you guys. My first question is, what was it like to play for coaches of that time? Name them. What were their pre-game, halftime, and after-game speeches like? And what was your feeling to wearing that uniform at Jack Yates High School or Phyllis Wheatley?
Well, I tell you this, one of the greatest feelings that I had was to be in a Yates uniform, to be a player coached by one of the greatest coaches known to football. But let me tell you, one of the greatest things that happened, we knew that we would not be able to hear anything once we came out of the dressing room. And so what Coach Patterson did, we had silent practices. We had practices where there was a lot of noise. And we learned how to use a silent count because we couldn't hear anything on the field. So we watched the snap of the football, and once the football snapped, then we went on. The equalizing thing is that our opponents, Wheatley, couldn't move until we moved. So we had the first move on them, so we had to jump on them.
That's a Baptist preacher, so you know he'll go on and on. See, we got to stop him right now, okay? It was an honor for me and all of my teammates to wear the purple and white and play for Phyllis Wheatley, especially on Thanksgiving Day. What was it like playing for Frank Walker? Wow, that's a great question. He was one that was a no-nonsense coach. During Thanksgiving week, it was a strange thing. None of our coaches would talk to us until we got to practice. And the Thanksgiving evening, we would practice down at the Y camp. And they had a camp where they would take us away so we could get focused in on the game. And all during the time when we were at the Y camp, it was like, okay, you know what you got to do. So it was a pressure-packed situation, but it was one that we enjoyed. It was one that we took honor in representing our schools. Go ahead.
We also have Coach Walker's daughter here. Dr. Walker, you like to respond?
Not about anything you're talking about. It's just an announcement I'd like to make.
Okay.
I've heard enough about my daddy. I've heard enough about me today. I've heard enough about the Fifth Ward. And I had planned to do something and I'm usually low-keyed. I don't like to be out in the public too much, but I had made a decision last week to give of my own money, and it is my money. It's not Frank Walker's money, anything he left. It's my money that I made out of a legitimate investment. Took 8 years to come to fruition. Came through about a month ago, and I had decided to take part of it. I won't tell you how much the whole thing was because you wouldn't believe me anyway, but I had planned to take part of it and give an endowment fund to Phyllis Wheatley. And now that I see this today, I'm going to still do that, but I'm going to include the Yates brothers and sisters and most of HISD.
Awesome.
And I want the money used to improve sports and, scholarship and those things and leadership characteristics in all of HISD, but in particularly in the Wheatley and Yates environments. I'd like for Yates to participate in all of this in all of the schools that feed into the local HISD situation, because it is all messed up. And I don't know how we're going to get that straight, but I would like for the two schools, once they start receiving the money, that they will make arrangements how they want to run the endowment fund together. Like the schools get together like we're here today and eat lunch together, and y'all can take some of the money and pay for the lunch. That's all right. But I just wanted to tell you that I'm going to announce today that we're going to do this more globally. Don't ask me how much money, but it's enough for you to be happy about.
Awesome. Thank you. That was a truly amazing announcement, and thank you, Dr. Walker, for what you're doing and your contribution to these great schools.
Go Wildcats.
I mean, my goodness, Dr. Walker, she really dropped a nugget in this evening. She dropped a huge nugget.
She usually does that.
I have a couple more questions. One question I would like to ask these guys up here. Did playing against each other feel like a true rivalry or a bond?
Oh, I will take that one. It was truly a rivalry. There's no question about it. You know, yeah. Well, Thanksgiving week, it was like, hey, let's go get it. We got to go get it now. We had lost the game my senior year to Cashmere, and we were reeling. My junior year. And we had to figure out how are we going to win the game. We had to play against the biggest high school players would ever played against, Alfonso Dotson, Ben Stevenson, and some more of them. And we said, oh man, how are we going to do this? And we ended up winning the game. I know y'all talked about 5 games, but we won this game when we weren't supposed to, 3-0, you know? Y'all remember that? We won that game. We won that game 3-0. Yes, sir. That's right.
I think the rivalry is still here.
Now, did that answer the question? But let me just say this on a serious note. It was an honor playing against the Yates Lions. They were a formidable, competitive opponent that always drew the best out of Wheatley football team or whatever we were playing. So to the Yates group, hats off to you. You helped us be a better group.
Amen.
You know?
And the fella with the purple coat on, you ain't got a mic in front of you, so you just. But by the same token, listen, we were competitors on the field, and we gave it our best shot on the field. But after football, we were friends after football. And here's the reason that we were friends, because when we left high school, many of us ended up on the same college teams. So we were not enemies, we were competitors. I never shall forget, I was friends with two quarterbacks from Wheatley. And on Sundays, we would visit each other. But we learned real quick that when I went to Fifth Ward, not to wear my Yates sweater. And I don't know how many of you all remember Archie B. Harris, but Archie B. and I were just like brothers. Quarterback. Yeah, he was a quarterback. He loved me and I loved him. And he knew not to come to Third Ward with a Wheatley sweater on. But on the field, we were competitors. But on Sundays, we were like brothers.
All right. That worked.
And that's the way, and that's the way it is today. In this room, we are all just God's children.
Yes.
I think I better throw that in, because the text says, all we like sheep have gone astray. But in this room, we are all God's children.
Yeah.
What a word. My last question for this afternoon is, recall the atmosphere of playing before a sellout crowd in Jefferson Stadium. What was that atmosphere like for you?
Let me share with you first that I just want to say, tailgating on what he said, together we are better. Don't ever forget that. Together we are better. When we came off the field, we were friends, and some of our best friends now were from Yates High School, so we can remember that. Let me just say, too, the football team, we played the game, but there were some other people that made the game special. It wasn't just the football team that did it. We were taking the licks. But Mary Ann Welch sitting back in the back, stand up, Mary Ann, she was a cheerleader. Yeah. And Jim Smith was the drum major. Stand up, Jim. And there's somebody else, and they see when you start calling names, you forget them. Oh, I'm sorry, Ida Powell, she was a cadet in ROTC, wasn't you? Yeah. They helped make this. What was it like playing before 41,000? 1961, both teams came into the Turkey Day game undefeated. Wheatley 9-0, Yates 9-0, 41,000 people there. We really didn't see them. I mean, if we had focused on the people, we would have lost the game. We missed so many things as football players. We did not see the helicopter. We did not see the breakfast. We did not see those things. So we talked about it as a senior class. What we said is, we got to win this and we got to focus in. So when we passed the people, it was like, yeah, we could feel it all, because from the school to the stadium, there were people waving at us like we were celebrities. They were moving out of the way, you know. So playing in front of 41,000 was.
There were more than 40,000 people that I sat there counting by little seconds.
That's,
Because they had people letting them walk around the
Track. That's right.
And they had 15 to 20,000 down there walking.
yeah.
40 plus. 40 plus. I estimated it was more like 60,000.
Well, Etta Francis is saying it was more like 60,000, but on the other hand, I do remember that it was like they had to clear the way for us to get onto the field and get out the field. What a great experience. Thank you so much.
And by the same token, they're really talking about ticket sales. But they don't include the folk who climb the walls. And I'm serious when I say that they had ticket buyers who would go in and they had ropes under their coats, and they would go up to the top of the stadium and let the ropes down and bring in about 20 or 40 others climbing up, coming into the ballpark. and so you can add 25 more thousand to that. But here again, as I forestated, and I know that we've got to get out of here, but as I forestated, when we came out of the dressing room, it was like being in a vase. I mean, you couldn't hear, you could barely see, but you could feel the licks.
Yeah.
And the theme of it was, may the best man win.
Yeah.
Amen.
Now,
Amen.
I think, and let me say this, Carl, I think Thurman said that Wheatley won the last 5 games or something like that, but that's not true because 5 of the last
20.
Oh, okay, because we beat Wheatley my senior year, which was 1957. I said we beat Wheatley.
Thank you, guys.
We're gonna close this out with the school songs. My closing remarks is thank you, thank you, thank you. I made the decision to put those scores in. That probably was a mistake. The fact of the matter is you could win the game and lose the halftime. Or you could win the halftime and not have the best parade. So lots of competitions were going on. So let's see. I forget which song is first. Jack Yates?
Jack Yates, y'all won the toss. Jack Yates is first.
All right.
They first because we're the best.
All right.
Don't leave Wheatley because we have to do our school song. Wheatley, you can wait 5 minutes.
All of us, Jack Yates, please stand. All Jack Yates alumni, please stand.
Either that or Carl gonna sing it by himself.
Yates only stand.
Jack Yates.
Yates only stand.
We stand before you, beacon light for eager eyes. Yeah. Which hospital? Which hospital?
True and ever loyal to the dreams inspired.